I feel so empty. I honestly can't tell you how many times I have had that thought and feeling. And I think that this is related to one of the most disregarded symptoms related to BPD. So if you're curious to find out more, then I encourage you to stick around. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Kayla. This is my cat Tuna and I release videos about all things BPD every Monday. So if that sounds good to you, be sure to hit the subscribe button down below as well as the bell notification up top. Right, Tuna? Today we're going to be talking about the seventh symptom relating to BPD, which is one of chronic feelings of emptiness. Now, this feeling of emptiness can be described as a feeling of hollowness, of nothingness, a lack of meaning, a purpose, and it's almost like no matter what you do, that feeling never quite goes away. So because there's this element of sensing that there's something missing inside, we do see this external seeking of things or people to give us a sense of fullness internally. So for me personally, I used to change jobs a lot, change my beliefs frequently. In romantic relationships, I was never satisfied. This also, I believe, contributed to my tricky relationship with food. So it was almost like I was binge eating, in part because of many different things, but a part of it also was also trying to feel this void of boredom and emptiness that is kind of humming nonstop in the background. So when we think about this chronic emptiness that elicits these problematic behaviors, I think that a better term for it instead of emptiness would be longing. So it's not just the simple act of perceived emptiness. It's also this longing or yearning for love, for connection, for fulfillment. Now, don't get me wrong. I know that most people have this feeling of needing to figure it all out, to answer who am I, to answer the big questions in life. The distinction though with folks who have BPD is this feeling is much sharper, okay? It's much more persistent. It also leads to feelings of uselessness, loneliness, isolation, which is a precursor to things like depression and suicidal ideation. Typically what we see with folks who have BPD is when they enter a new relationship, they often feel very full because they're putting all of their hopes and aspirations onto this external thing. So in the honeymoon phase, when everything is very exciting, it's easy to feel like the sense of emptiness is gone. That finally we have found this one thing who's going to provide us with happiness and a sense of meaning in our lives. What happens though is that when this honeymoon phase ends and the stability sets in, things again become, quote, boring, right? So we don't have the exciting feelings anymore. This means that the emptiness creeps back up. And then we feel like, oh, well, maybe I'm not doing something right in this relationship, or maybe my partner is not doing enough, which then triggers the impulsive behaviors, right? Those self-sabotaging behaviors of pushing our partner away, maybe doing things like flirting in front of them to try to get more attention and excitement back into the relationship. So this is how this symptom of emptiness, which is kind of why I said at the beginning that it's underrated because it has so much impact on all the different symptoms. We don't really pay that much attention to it though because it doesn't feel as strong as really impulsive urges, right? Or urges to self-harm or to be very angry. Those are very intense feelings and emotions, whereas this chronic emptiness, it's always there, but it's very low and hard to detect at times. Now that we have a good sense of what chronic emptiness is and looks like in folks with BPD, I want to talk about how we can lessen and defeat boredom. Boredom is highly attached to this feeling of emptiness. So if we can lessen the boredom, we can then lessen the intensity to which we feel empty. The first thing I will recommend is to stop procrastinating, okay? Because when you're procrastinating, you're pushing everything off, which leaves this huge gap of time where you're doing nothing and you're feeling that boredom very intensely. And then when those deadlines are approaching, then you're feeling very overwhelmed, which triggers the impulsivity, the mood fluctuations, and different BPD symptoms. So when we start to reduce procrastination, we start to fill in our days with things that are linked to our values, that are linked to things that give us a sense of feeling accomplished. And so we don't feel so empty anymore. One way that you can do this is by using SMART goals. So SMART stands for specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. So specific, let's say if my goal is to run a 5K, then I'm going to specify when am I going to run, for how long, right? So if I'm going to say I'm going to run 3 times a week, I'm going to start with 5 minutes a day and then add the specific details as to how I'm going to get to that 5K. Measurable, you need to measure and know when have I achieved my goal. So for me, it's when I have ran my 5K, check, right? I have obtained my objective. The A is for attainable. So it needs to be something that you can do given your capacities, but it's also attainable and related to the bigger picture. So you want to link the SMART goals to the bigger picture. So if I'm trying to improve my mental health, then maybe forcing myself to run a few times a week will be beneficial in that sense. Realistic also is it realistic for me to run a 5K given my athletic capacities? If the answer is yes, then you're good to go. And then time bound, once again, you want to really specify when are you going to accomplish these things? Is it every Tuesday, Thursday, Wednesday? When are you going running? Who are you going with, right? So that essentially is a SMART goal. I will link a PDF in the show notes down below, just in case you're curious in digging into that more and having a worksheet that you can work off of. Another thing that you can do to help fight those feelings of chronic emptiness and boredom would be to add some novelty in your life by breaking your habits and patterns and daily routines. Now, this does not need to be very extreme. You don't need to go travel across the globe to add novelty to your life. What I mean by this is just sprinkling in from day to day things that add a sense of newness. Okay, so if you're a student and you tend to study at home a lot because of the pandemic, right? We've been stuck, confined to our homes for 2 years now. When things are starting to open back up, instead of staying at home to do your homework on Sunday morning, go take a walk, go to a new coffee shop that you've never tried before, stay there and do your homework and see how that feels. Or you can try going to a new gym, or you can try going to new restaurants, or going on a new route for your walking trail, okay? I know for me and everyone else, we're very habitual as human beings, and I tend to always follow the same path when I go for my walks. And honestly, just changing the streets that I'm walking on is enough for me to feel like I went on a mini adventure. It adds that sense of spiciness and novelty in my life. So we want to try to integrate mini sessions of new things in our day-to-day to fight those feelings of boredom and emptiness. The third thing I will recommend is to expand your social circle. Now, this can happen with folks with BPD. Maybe throughout our lives, we have built up this social circle of people who actually support and encourage our symptoms, okay? So they validate the fact that we have no direction in life, that we're worthless, that we are good for nothing. And so separating ourselves from those individuals and engaging in healthier friendships and positively embodied relationships, which means relationships with people that embody trust, mutual respect, effective communication, honesty, support. Those types of healthy social circles will give us a new lease on life and will allow us to escape those feelings of emptiness and for them to go away. Because if we have people who are constantly pushing us to grow, we're not going to feel so stuck. We're not going to feel like we're put in this box of someone who just fundamentally has no aim in life, right? So we want to be with individuals who really provide us with a sense of support and care to help fight feelings of boredom and emptiness. Lastly, you want to try to resist those feelings of shame. Now, I know that this is difficult. Shame is a big part of having BPD. What I want you to realize, though, is that this sense of emptiness has nothing to do with you, okay? It's nothing that you're doing as a person. This is a part of having BPD. This is a symptom. So if you're experiencing that, just know that this is not something that you chose. And like I did say though, there are things that you can do to improve those feelings of emptiness and boredom, like the other recommendations I made before. But beating yourself up about the fact that you're having those feelings is not going to move you any closer to your goal. So just recognizing that this is not something that you chose. This is something that happened to you that maybe you were born with. And now what can we do to move forward and to move on with our lives? Because BPD is not a death symptom. A sentence. It's not a death sentence, right? So it's not something that you need to have for the rest of your life. These are symptoms that you're experiencing. Symptoms can be eradicated and managed, and this is where we're going. I want to highlight that combating this feeling of emptiness is unique to you, okay? So whatever is working for other people, it doesn't mean that it's going to work for you, and you need to play around with different things to figure out what helps you feel more whole and more meaningful in life. You deserve to find a path through this emptiness that does not hurt you and others along the way. So play around with different things because it is possible for you to find out who you are, to get a sense of completeness so that you can stop feeling empty. As always, I'm curious to know what you found from the information I provided today. Let me know if there's different things that you find helpful to fight off feelings of boredom and emptiness. And as always, really the best way to support my channel would be to share my videos, because the more people see these, the more that we're spreading awareness on BPD and the more that we're breaking down the stigma, which is really what I'm trying to do here. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with me today. And once again, I will see you next week for another episode of On the Line.